This episode of What the Tech is brought to you by Harry's. For guys like you who want a great shave experience at a fraction of what you're paying. Go to harrys.com and get $5 off your first purchase by entering the code WhatTheTech when you check out.
What the Tech?
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. Of course, I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Not good today. Not good. Don't lie. Not good.
Not happy.
Not happy
today.
So you still having those issues with the Nook, huh?
Yep. And I think this is the bridge too far.
Yeah. It's not
PCIe bridge too far.
Yeah, quite possibly a sky brick. Sky brick.
A sky brick.
Sky
That's what
brick.
they called it.
Sky, like more like sky brick. Am I right?
Like when Shaq took a free throw, it was a sky brick.
Yeah, this is the Shaq at the free throw line during the playoffs of portable computing.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about the Nook. If people don't know what it is, it's a very small desktop. Then it comes in an i7 and an i5 form. I guess it's a Mac. It's a Mac Mini type device, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's like a Mac Mini type device, and
even smaller.
Even smaller. Paul has a Skylake version, which is the latest and the greatest version of it, and he has been plagued with
version is correct.
Not the greatest.
It's not the greatest.
The latest, and he has been plagued with bizarre USB issues. You had this issue with the 5 frame a second with 1080p video. So I'm
losing track, but I think this is the third major time I've had this problem.
Yeah, because the first time you had this exact issue where it's 5 frames a second. They blew the thing away, and remarkably, the problem went away. It was fine. I think you unplugged USB stuff.
Andrew, here's the difference.
Yeah.
The first two times this happened, it happened after I installed Intel's drivers using the Intel driver utility, whatever the name of that is.
But this is a drastic improvement because before, when you did that upgrade to the driver, you were just frozen.
Okay.
And you would freeze at 1080p.
That's like saying it's better to be a zombie than to be dead. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because before you were frozen, but shockingly, it's only when you go to 1080p, not when you're doing 720. So, I don't know.
This is the problem I have with this thing fundamentally is for some reason, like in other words, I picture this like a freeway, and the freeway is clogged.
Sure.
And one more car makes the whole thing come crashing down.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So this thing is so unreliable that at 720p, everything is okay.
Yeah.
But once you switch over to 1080p, it comes crashing down to earth. And that is not okay.
So the $1 million question here, which we will be asked, is then why don't you just leave it at 720, Paul?
Yes. I'd love to do that.
The answer is...
Could you kindly tell me where the control in Skype is for that little...
The answer is...
little idea?
You cannot do that. You cannot set it. And even... I know some people tell you, well, install the Logitech drivers and set it in the Logitech driver. No. That setting the control for the resolution in Logitech only works for the Logitech software. Skype determines that, hey, Paul's got a i7 here and he got plenty of bandwidth. Yeah, let's do 1080. You cannot throttle it. The only way to really throttle it is
I'd love to throttle it.
I'd love to throttle it. Is to max out your CPU to the point where you find the right spot where it'll only send you 720. So Paul, if you want to start playing 1080p videos via YouTube while we do the show, that quite possibly can correct the problem.
You're saying? I just want to make sure. I understand what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I start playing a 1080p video.
Or 720. Just make your CPU go to like 75%, 80%.
You think that will do it? That would be funny, so let's try it.
That would be a very logical guess that I'm willing to take.
All right, so there's one 1080p video.
Okay.
Let's see what else can I get.
I'm
going to play them over my... Here,
let's see what... I could actually... This is actually an interesting thing. We're doing a show here. This is a live show here. I could determine what Paul's CPU is at. But you know what? Probably the video graphics are so good on that thing, it's probably not going to take the. Well, you're at 41% CPU usage, so that did nothing.
Yeah, it's not really.
Yeah. So it's technically.
I'll play all all 6 Star Wars movies at the same time.
Yeah, Ichu said that there's a tool to peg your CPU. That might actually work also.
That's insanity.
Yeah. So guys, he's having a problem with it. It's not really Skype. Well, actually, you know what? There are different ways. You could actually throttle the bandwidth in Skype.
My CPU is in a 90% range right now. I just need one more video.
One more. The reality is,
let's start playing Rise of the Tomb Raider.
We shouldn't have to do this.
No, you don't. You think?
This is the point. But it does show you the limitations of technology like this, right? Like everybody says,
100% CPU, by the way.
People want the smallest and the lightest and the, even though it's an i7, you're still going to be plagued with issues like this. It's an interesting experiment. I've gotten so much feedback regarding your issues with the Nook where, you know what? Getting a tiny little desktop may not be the solution.
Well, I think, as in so many things in life, for most people, this would be fine.
Yeah.
Going 100% CPU didn't solve any problems, by the way.
No, it did not.
Most people don't record podcasts and whatever. I mean, I don't really. There are three USB ports on this thing that are not being used right now that have nothing plugged into them. There's not a lot going on here.
Yeah, maybe your mouse is more than enough to totally put everything.
You think it's the mouse?
I think it's the mouse. It's using way too much bandwidth.
The mouse that would do it.
Yeah.
Just get a Bluetooth mouse already.
Yeah, the mouse and the keyboard are just using all that bandwidth.
Well, I guess there are 3. No. Yeah. I only have 3 things plugged into USB.
What are they? I'm curious. What are they?
Well, one's the USB interface for the microphone.
Okay.
One is the camera.
Okay, 2 necessities
so
to do a podcast.
2 of the 3 are literally required for the podcast.
Yeah.
And the third one is the mouse. That's it.
And okay, so all necessities while doing the show.
No, I'm not importing video or scanning photos or whatever. Like Okay.
Well, by the way, we can, and there's a lot of great suggestions in the chat room. If you're watching this live on Facebook or you're watching this on any number of our CDNs, if you go to gfqlive.tv, you could join the chat room there. A lot of great suggestions. One, which actually makes a lot of sense. In the router, you could do the quality of service for Skype and kind of throttle the bandwidth to Skype. So you can force Skype to only do, let's say,
that's so dumb,
3 megabits, 3 megabits a second, and that'll do 720p. But again, these are all Band-Aids to a much larger problem. I think it's you. I think you're the problem, Paul.
You think it's, by the way, that's not horribly incorrect.
I think Skylake knows about your opinion of it and said, you know what? We're just going to mess with Paul. It's quite a possibility.
Let's see how my router's doing.
Yeah, it's quite a possibility. Guys, we have a lot to talk about today. I was away last week. I was in California, and we could not schedule due to time difference, and Paul was in New York, and I was flying. We just couldn't figure out to do a show. So there's a lot to recap. There's a lot to talk about. But before we do that, I want to take a moment and talk about our great sponsor, and that's Harry's. Guys, I actually have something here that I'm going to talk about. I don't know if they want me to, but I'm going to show it because I just got a package from Harry's, and I have no idea what it is. If you are looking for a great shave at a fraction of the cost of what some of those other razors are in the store, you got to check out Harry's. They're high quality, high performance German blades. Crafted by shaving experts. You're not getting this crappy razor that you're gonna have to throw out in a couple of days because you used it twice. That's the issue that I've had with one of the razors that I've been using for the last 15 years. I like to stick to what works, and I've been buying these cheapo razors. They were great for the time being, and all of a sudden they just got really, really dull. I mean, I think they're just making bad razors at this point because one shave, and I have a beard, so I don't shave that often. I just clean up the sides, and I can't use it more than twice. It tears my face apart. The other problem is those Mach 80 razors that you see in the store with 5,000 blades. I have very soft skin and a soft spin, and I cannot use those at all. It's a bloodbath. The second, when Harry's contacted us, said, hey, we want to advertise with you guys, and we want to send you one and get your honest opinion, I was terrified to use this product because my skin is really soft, and I'm just going to start bleeding everywhere. Not the case with Harry's. They really know how to make a great blade. Over 1 million guys have made the switch over to Harry's, which is great. And here's a great promotion. If you go to harrys.com and you enter in code WhatTheTech at checkout, you get $5 off your first purchase. harrys.com, enter in the code WhatTheTech and get $5 off your first purchase. So this is not part of the read. I'm sorry if I'm going to upset anyone, but I got this box today, and it's from Harry's. So I thought I would open it up live on the air.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy. You know what? This is like a final goodbye box, probably. Like, hey, thanks a lot for nothing. Here you go. So this is a great example. This is how it comes straight to my door. It was overnighted, by the way. It was sent out at Tuesday at 8 p.m. So last night. So less than 24 hours to get this. I have no idea what this is. This is not part of the live read, but I'm going to incorporate it because the real experience that you rarely get. So here's the box. Oh, this is actually beautiful. So here's how it comes in. Do you see that, Paul? Look at that. How it arrives. Let's open this up. And here's a nice little set. This is the Harry set. Here we go. Look at this. This is how you get your razors. It's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful and great to use. Actually, I'm glad that they sent me this. And there's a little note. It says Happy Father's Day. Look how nice these people are. Oh, Harry's limited edition Father's. So I'm supposed to do this next week. So don't talk. We're not going to talk about this again. But this is how great these guys are. Great quality, great everything. I'm going to talk about more of this. I've actually ordered 4 of them for Father's Day, which we'll talk about more next week on the show. Harrys.com. Put in the code WhatTheTech at checkout to get $5 off. I want to thank Harry's for supporting the show, for, of course, supporting everything we do here. They're great people. So, and see, it proves I actually use the products that I talk about. That's how it always is here. So, Paul, where do we begin? Let's see.
Where do we begin?
Let's start off with trying to get to my notes. Let's start off with.
Would you like me to read them to you, Andrew?
Yeah, why don't you list one by one? You want to talk about the unupgrade gate?
Unupgrade gate.
Which you sent to me? That's what you wrote.
Well, I'm calling it upgrade gate.
Upgrade gate. Upgrade gate. Yes, there you go.
Because we never get tired of upgrade names, or I'm sorry, gate names.
Yeah.
So, oh boy. You know, I've been a really vocal opponent of Microsoft's overly aggressive stance on getting people to upgrade to Windows 10. And they've really ratcheted things up over the months. Most notably, it's hard to say most notably, but some of the more notable things they did was secretly download Windows 10 in the background so that it would be really easy to install if you chose to do so.
Or even worse, what Mary Jo Foley and I both experienced, where you just woke up one day and you had Windows 10 on your computer without even clicking on anything.
They added it to the recommended updates section of Windows Update a couple months ago, thus ensuring that it would be auto-downloaded and then installed after a couple prompts on millions and millions of computers. And there's kind of a social engineering quality to the advertisement window that pops up where, giant install now and no other button for don't install, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, have to know to hit X, right? That's how it is?
Oh, but see, that's the upgrade gate. You have to know to hit X.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They made a change. And when you hit X now, you've agreed to install it.
Really?
Yeah. That's the problem.
Oh, because because you're absolutely right, because it gives you a thing saying I want to delay this. Like, it's very hidden. Yep. It's like I want to delay the upgrade. It's is there an actual button that says I never want to do this stupid thing?
No.
Okay.
What you can do is cancel an automatic upgrade.
Okay.
Because it's automated now through Windows Update. But that won't cancel it forever. And if that dialog pops up and you just don't want to install Windows 10, in the past, if you close the window by hitting that X, which is the close window box, it would cancel it for a while. It would always come back, but you could kind of cancel it. Now, if you close that window that way, it will install.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Now, Microsoft defenders, I'm sure they're out there, would explain to you that you still, there's still some prompts that occur And fair enough. But I mean, this is social engineering, right? The point of this is to calm you down enough that you don't pay attention to what's happening. This isn't designed for people that want to make a decision
Yeah.
that is in their own best interests. It's designed to fake you out. And you can try to defend this all you want, not you, but anyone who might try. This is indefensible. This change happened with no announcement, with no understanding that was happening. It was just that a bunch of people started complaining, and this is what we figured out. This is what's happening. So yeah,
This is a major problem.
Yeah,
Not
it
because
is.
Microsoft, not because Windows 10 is bad and you're gonna have this terribly.
No,
Because
Windows 10 is awesome.
It's not. Not that it's not honest. I'm trying to find.
It is dishonest.
It's dishonest, and it's really sleazy of a way to
it's
do
like
it.
you go to a car dealership and you're like, I'm looking at a brand new car. What do we got to do to get in this car? And you're like, I'm just looking. I'll come back later. I need to look around a little bit. And then you go home and the new car's sitting in your driveway and your first bill has arrived in the mail.
Yeah,
like you bought it.
Yeah.
You bought it even though you told them you weren't going to buy it.
No, you told me you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'll come back next week. Maybe
Yep.
I'll look at it next week. Yeah. I had this problem with I was in California. We were upgrading our studio there at Spencer's studio, and I turned the computer on, and I had a weird issue with there was a Windows update that did something, and it just triggered for the UEFI BIOS to tell me that I don't have a hard drive. So I had to go into the BIOS and like reset everything and blah, blah, all this stuff. But when I turned the computer on, I got a pop-up. And it was Windows 10. It says, your Windows 10 update is scheduled for, it was that night at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Why? The computer's been off. It's been off for probably 2 months.
I don't know.
How would I have possibly clicked on I want to do an update? So in my case, I have to update that machine to Windows 10. I have no problem with that. But if I had proprietary software, and this is a rarity, and I'm one of these people that uses special drivers for special hardware, and I turn the computer off, I leave my office, I come back, I have Windows 10, and I can't run this stuff, that is a major problem. And I don't care if that thing does that driver check to tell you that it's going to work. It did the driver check for me also, and I've had it not work with certain drivers.
Yeah, you're not the only one on that one too.
So that sucks.
The whole thing sucks.
Yeah, well, I guess it's going to go away.
By the way, one of the reasons it's like, imagine that Microsoft was the Microsoft of the past, because they're not, right? But imagine that they're just a deceptive company. We all know this. It's the way it is. And they do this, and you would say, okay, well, that's the way they are, those bastards over at Microsoft. But they're actually better than this these days for the most part.
No, they are. They are.
And Windows 10 is awesome. It's just that you can't force it on people. People have their own reasons for sticking with Windows 7. It could literally simply be fear, because the upgrade process is still fraught with problems. It could fail. You could get a Windows 10 installed that doesn't work properly. You could go to roll it back, and that doesn't work properly.
Yeah.
Your data is on there. Your applications are on there. Most people don't know how to do backup and restore all the things they can do to protect themselves.
I think the problem here is that Microsoft has a little too much faith in the install process of Windows 10.
This is like engineers who are driving an experience and saying, well, our telemetry shows that 90, whatever percent, it's working out great. That's neat.
Historically, Windows has been a difficult thing to install for most people. We're not most people. People listening to this, 130 people in our chat room right now, are not most people, and most people upgrade operating systems based on buying a new computer.
Yeah, this requires you to look outside of yourself, right? I mean,
so when you see it for free, when you see it say, "Hey, you want to upgrade to Windows 10?" You're gonna go, "Okay, yeah, sure." And what happens when you like? Great example. I have a Dell. I cannot do the upgrade. I have to do a clean install on this thing. It goes into an endless loop, and then it freaks out. It goes, "Oh crap, something is wrong. We're just going to revert right back to Windows 7. Don't worry about it." But I still get this update for Windows 10.
Right.
What happens if when it reverts back to Windows 7, if something goes wrong? What am I going to do then? Who am I going to go to? I'm going to call Microsoft and tell them to fix this?
I, I guess so. I mean, I just bring it to your local Microsoft store. You know, those things are everywhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring the 4-year-old compact that I have, the HP desktop that I have that I bought 4 years ago from God knows where. I'm gonna walk into the store and say, "You messed this up, fix it." It's
a shame. The whole thing is a shame. It's
and I'm gonna say
a big disconnect.
I'm gonna say I deal with this on a regular level, right? Like we have proprietary software and hardware that we use to get this going, right? And I talk to the engineers and I tell them, "Hey, listen, we have this as an issue," and they go, "Well, no, I don't. Why would that be an issue? I use this and I don't have that issue." Yeah, but you don't use it on a regular basis. You're an engineer. You're not actually using the software in real time usage. You're testing it and you're implementing features. You're not using it like a real person. And I've had such a difficult time. I had that problem with Skype. You know, I've had that problem with one of the capture card companies that we've used, and we have that problem right now with you, where I send the video to you and the video freezes, so I have to toggle it on and off. And I explain this to them. They go, "Well, I don't have this problem." But you don't use it with Skype. Of course, you don't.
The
have
absence, your inability to see a problem doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, this is a frequent a feedback loop that I get on Twitter, especially where, you know, you complain about something. Like, that doesn't happen to me. You know, I wrote about how, you know, when you upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 8, to Windows 10, your computer is supposed to be registered in this cloud database so that if you later do a clean install, it will automatically activate. I have heard from dozens and dozens of people, and I have myself now twice experienced the fact that this doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And when I write about stuff like that, I hear from people. One guy said, I've updated 100 machines in a lab. I never had that problem. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I mean, people assume that their anecdotal information is evidence of something, you know, that because this happened to me, it happens to everyone. And that's just people. But when Microsoft does it institutionally, that's a class action lawsuit. You know, what they're doing is patently wrong. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
And I mean,
by the way,
so far it's been a bunch of silence, but
I'm getting a lot of messages while you're talking. Paul's issue right now is a USB issue with his Nook. I'll explain it again.
Okay. Yeah. Why are we talking about this all of a sudden?
Because I'm getting messages from people saying, "Hey, is everything all right? Is it me or is it Paul? Is it me or is it Paul?"
We should have a little message up at a thing that says,
I need like a CNN scroller. It's a scroll thing. It's not you. It's Paul. Paul's the one with the problems. No, I understand the frustration with a lot of people with the Windows 10 upgrade. Just do the upgrade. just give in.
Just do the.
But it is interesting.
By the way, no,
is this like a fourth quarter push though?
A lot. Yeah, it is. Yeah. By the way, a lot of people are saying that. Dr. Pizza right now is on Twitter saying there are very few good reasons to stick with Windows 7 and Windows 8. Wrong. Wrong. There are many good reasons. And the number one reason is it doesn't always work when you upgrade. And most people can't handle the aftermath of that. They don't prepare, they don't back up, they don't know how to restore, they don't have everything ready should everything go wrong. This is also Microsoft's stance, because all the engineers, all the smart people working on Windows, they don't care if their Windows machine doesn't work. They have another one over here, and they can blow that thing away and reset it anytime. It's no problem. What's the problem?
Okay, so
there's a disconnect here between the real world and the really smart people who aren't thinking very smartly right now about a very serious problem. You know, my wife, by the way, this past week was automatically upgraded to Windows 10. Yeah.
How'd it go for
I made the mistake of I went under our bathtub. I've got white stuff all over me we've got a guy who was fixing the tub, and
you know what? I don't even think anybody notices.
I know, it's killing me. That's fucking me because I'm covered in like white powder. One of my drug-fueled lunges.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fourth quarter push, obviously, because July is coming up and it's the last day. So I have a question for you. So these issues right now that people are having with the upgrading to Windows 10 from Windows 7, theoretically, none of these issues should ever happen because Windows is just Windows now, right? So with the anniversary edition and the next version and the next version, since it's all Windows, is it still? I mean, this is what I have not really understood is 2 years from now, when the next version of Windows comes out, whatever, every year it's coming out, is it going to be like going from?
It gets easier over time, right?
Okay.
I mean, because presumably they don't change the infrastructure too much anymore like they used to. Excuse me, in the past. I'm just looking at some numbers real quick. Let's say 10. Yeah. So somewhere on the order of 60% of all versions of Windows out in the wild right now, 60%-ish, are Windows 7 or Windows 8.x.
Okay.
Right? So that means that 900 million computers are sitting out there in the world running something that is not Windows 10 or Windows XP for that
300
matter.
million are. Yeah.
300 million are.
300 million
Yep.
are, yeah.
But 900 million aren't. And that 900 million figure is 900 million PCs that presumably could be upgraded to Windows 10 if their owners wanted to do so. Not all of them, of course. But
these
there's
900
some
million,
percentage that can't.
are we talking about 900 million active devices?
Yeah.
Active
devices.
every day or every
usage.
week.
Yep.
Yeah, active usage. Okay. That's tremendous. I mean, that's a tremendous
It's
number of
unbelievable.
people. Yeah.
And by the way, let's just pretend that maybe half of them can't be upgraded. They're too old. They have processors that don't support certain instruction sets that are required by Windows, whatever it is. 450, 500 million, right? That Windows 10 stays Windows 10 for the next year or two doesn't impact the fact that that's a huge audience, you know? And as those people do upgrade to Windows 10, either by buying a new computer or in very select cases actually taking the PC and upgrading it, that doesn't always take those machines out of circulation. Yeah. Sometimes people might still use that second computer as an older second computer. They might hand it off to a child or a family member or a friend or sell it or whatever. Like these things are out in the world.
Okay, I got a question now.
It doesn't really solve the problem.
So I have two machines that I'm not going to upgrade because they're too old. They're older machines, and we use it for like guest laptops. If you're in the studio and you're a guest, this is what I have two sitting right here. I have Windows 7 on them. I'm not going to put 10. So I know that Windows, the next, the update that's coming out in July, they changed the specs for hardware, correct?
Yes, they did.
Where it's going to require more hardware. It's going to require, I think, 2 gigs of RAM now instead of 1 gig of RAM.
Sure.
Right?
This is not, yes.
It's nothing new. So.
Well, I was going to say it's nothing dramatic.
Nothing dramatic, no. But
yeah.
I'm curious about the people that have like a netbook that qualified for Windows 10. And now, are they not going to get this update? Is it just not going to come up due to their specs and they're going to be on an older version?
We're not 100% sure. But yes, I think that is going to be the case.
Listen, the reality is if you have 1 gig of RAM on a Windows device and you're using it, I'm so sorry.
You have bigger problems than Windows 10.
You have way bigger problems than Windows 10.
Completely agree.
But I'm curious on how they're going to determine what system is upgradable.
Well, it's the way they do it today. I mean, when you run setup for Windows 10, there's an upgrade check, and some people have found out, like, sorry, you have an AMD whatever processor. It ran Windows 8 no problem. It ran Windows 8. It does not run Windows 10. Yeah. There's some kind of esoteric processor versions.
I guess now it'll be a Windows 8 foot heater for them. That AMD box.
Forever.
Yeah, right. Forever. It's a nice little heater for them.
But that's okay.
Yeah, that's
fine. Mean, these processors for the most part are out of date, and so if you have a system with 1 gigabyte of RAM, and you go to upgrade to the second major version of Windows 10, the Anniversary Edition, and it says, sorry, you don't have the resources necessary, I think that's a legitimate blocker. I mean, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, but again, it points to this fact that as much as we want everyone to be on the same Windows version, there's still going to be Windows versions out in the world. There's no way around that.
I think it's great that they're giving people the option to get this for free. Do you think that if it wasn't as aggressive as it is right now, right, with this upgrade, do you think that number would be drastically lower? would it be at 150 million instead of over 300 million? And
right.
like, is
It's
this
hard to
all for
say,
nothing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are people upgrading knowing what they're doing, or are they just clicking? I think there's going to be a very good portion of people that are just clicking on it.
Sure.
I think there's a good amount of people that it's scheduled in and it upgraded, but I don't know. I'm curious to see if there will ever be data regarding that.
I can't imagine they would ever release that information publicly. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's hard not to look at what they've done and see a bit of desperation, right? That as they've escalated this war on users of previous versions of Windows, you kind of get the feeling that the numbers aren't where they thought they were going to be, Yeah. And I do a bit of math. I wrote an article over the weekend where I sort of thought, okay, so X number of computers out in the world is still running Windows 7. In this case, I was looking specifically Windows 7, but let's say Windows 7 and Windows 8.x. How do we replace those with Windows 10? And how long will it take for Windows 10 to surpass usage of Windows 7? How does Microsoft get to this 1 billion figure that they've talked about, where they want to have that many active machines within 2 to 3 years
of Windows
10?
Yeah.
It's at the time that they announced it, and this was January of last year, so about 15, 16 months ago, that seemed easily obtainable, right? It wasn't hard to arrive. Like, well, here's how you get there. It's not that hard. I mean,
300 million in almost the over. I think what's the final number? What is it going to be? It's going to be 400 million, probably. Right.
The final number
for the 1 year anniversary, probably closer to 400.
I mean, right. So if things stay where they are now, it's about 24 million units per month. Units is kind of tough.
It has become like a playoff game in current day basketball. The score is 88 to 88 in the beginning of the fourth, but it ends with like 138 with like 30
right.
seconds
In other words,
to go.
there's so much time left in the game. One team has the ball. They have so many timeouts. The game's over.
Yeah.
I mean, there literally is like, sorry, I mean, assuming he doesn't fumble the ball here somehow stupidly while he takes a knee, this game is effectively over.
But we're looking at around 400 million people, new customers in 1 year.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
that's a
yeah
insane number. I mean,
it is,
that's
but that number's padded by two things. One, the big thing is upgrades, right? That's never happened in the history of Windows before. So some big chunk of that, and I would argue 2/3 of it probably is upgrades. And then another chunk that's semi-artificial is Xbox One.
Yeah.
It's not a huge number in the scope of things, but let's say 20 million-ish new Windows 10 users kind of came on board, so to speak, when the Xbox was upgraded to Windows 10.
And all 5 Windows phones.
Yeah, we're not counting those. Those are not statistically significant.
Yeah.
So when you look at how the PC industry is contracting, and if you think about 250 million PCs a year, let's say over the next 2 years, it's 500 million computers. How many of those have Windows 10 on them? Historically, for new versions of Windows, it's been about half. You don't hit 1,000. You don't hit 1 billion.
Yeah. What's interesting though?
So
talk about perception, right? This is my personal belief. I think this is great that Microsoft did this. This was very different from the old Microsoft. I think it's more good than harm is being created here by giving away this operating system. You're bringing people into a modern era of computing. You are allowing them to be, everything is maintained for them essentially, where Windows Defender is updated and all this is updated, and it's kind of like an Apple approach where, hey, we're going to give away this operating system. The problem now is the perception of this.
By the way, sorry to interrupt real quick, but Apple gives away the operating system. Apple only makes money when you buy hardware.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So now Microsoft's giving away the operating system. How are they making money again?
Yeah.
you're not buying their you know what I mean? It's slightly
services,
different.
right? Services.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you what. What annoys me?
That's theoretical. I mean, but
I'll give you an example. You know what annoys me on this? Forgive me for this annoying issue that I'm having, right? I have a production machine. Why do I need Xbox on there?
A production machine.
I have the Xbox app on this machine, right? Why can't I uninstall that? Why can't I uninstall OneNote?
Right. So you missed this while you were away last week, but I also published the results of my signature study that I did for Microsoft at the end of 2015.
Okay.
And it was kind of interesting because a lot of it fell kind of where I expected it. I have my own kind of confirmation bias going on here. It worked out the way I thought it would. But 7% of the people in the study preferred I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Forget that part of it.
Okay.
So a very big percentage of the people who participated in the study, regardless of whether they preferred signature or not, that's what I mean by forget that part of it. One of the things they didn't like was all of the, and I'm going to use the word crapware, even though some people aren't going to like it, that is bundled in Windows 10 itself.
The Microsoft
Windows 10,
services, yeah.
Yes. Well, not just Microsoft, like stuff like Candy Crush,
Yeah.
or 3D Builder, or, the Get Skype and Get Office apps, like OneNote, like you said. Like, what is this stuff? And why can't I right click on that and say go away?
So here we are, right? I could pull it up here. Let's find one. So Money. Can I install Money? I can. Money I can. It's weird, right? Money I can, but OneNote I cannot.
Nope.
News I can.
You can. No, you can. Yeah, that one you can.
News I can. Solitaire obviously I can. But like maps, I can't uninstall maps.
Right. There are third-party utilities that will let you remove all of this stuff, including, by the way, the store, although I don't recommend that for a variety of reasons. So you can get around it, but yeah, just gotta kind of put your, not you, Andrew, but the audience, put your perspective to that of a normal person. Like this is strange. In fact, one of the people in the study that I thought it was a really smart thing. This woman happened to be a Mac user, by the way, but she said, confronted by crapware and the signature PC experience versus what the PC makers give you, she said, I'd rather put stuff on my computer than have to take it off. And I really,
that's very interesting.
It was a very perceptive thing to say.
Ichi in our chat room says CC Cleaner could remove some, which I did do that actually. I did remove that, some of the stuff. But again, some of the stuff is in there and you can't. But it's a little tiny annoyance for me because I'm using this on a production machine. That's the only reason. I wouldn't care if it was there normally. It's a very different approach from Microsoft. And again, this is a new Microsoft. I think this is 95% positive. Unfortunately, there are going to be people with these issues. Mm-hmm. When we talk about the free upgrades, right? Like Apple does these upgrades. Is there any portion of the Mac user base that says, "Shit, Paul, you believe this? They're forcing Yosemite on me."
Well, yeah. So, by the way, the answer to that question is yes, because when we look at net market share, usage stats, what we see, what's the most recent version of Mac OS 10? Version 11, probably 10.11.
As a Mac user, it is 10.11.5. El Capitan.
Yeah. Okay. So the number of users who use the version that's previous to that, which must be, don't tell me, Yosemite.
Yosemite, yes. Good for you, Paul.
Yep. Almost. No, not quite. It's about 2/3 the size of the audience using the latest version. So there is a significant percentage of Mac OS 10 users who are on the previous version, so they ignore it.
That is interesting to me.
Yeah. Yep.
Because you have no reason to ignore it.
I know. I don't actually.
Because all Mac users do is go on Facebook and look at cat pictures. So there's really nothing that's going to break.
Put maybe in a less.
By the way, I mean I am showing that I am a Mac user here.
I would say but the way you say it is, there's no compatibility issues on the Mac like we see on the Windows necessarily, and the Mac has shown historically that upgrading in place to a new version of the OS has worked successfully for people. You don't see a lot of people having problems, whereas that has not been the case on Windows. Yeah, 65%. The audience size for Mac OS Yosemite is 65% the size of one for. Does that make sense?
Paul, so I was away last week. Actually, before we do that, I want to remind everybody, after the show, Paul's going to continue being in 5 frames a second. It is not your internets. It is not Paul's internets. It is a USB issue Paul's having. So, but after the show, he'll still be in 5 frames a second, but we're going to do a bonus show. It's called What to Talk. We record it live each and every week. It's exclusive on patreon.com/whattotech. Go to patreon.com/whattotech right now. You can fund it, a nickel, a quarter, get access to this. Helps us pay the bills. Helps maybe I got to buy Paul a camera now. If it's the camera.
I don't think it's the camera. I really don't. I mean, I'd love to think that having the camera changed out would somehow fix anything.
You know what?
but
Surprisingly, yeah. I don't know. You know what? When I see you, you know what, Paul? I got it. When I see you on Thursday, I'm gonna bring you a camera that will only do 720. It's the same exact camera, but only does 720p.
You think that will? Oh, that's interesting because
Right?
it's only 720p.
It's only 720p. Or I'll give you two cameras. Here's the deal. I'm gonna give you two cameras. One that does 720p, and the other one that will do 1080. Same exact cameras that you have, and we can figure it out.
I don't think we're ever going to figure this out. I think what's going to happen is Paul's going to build a different computer.
Yeah.
And this one's not going to use Skylake.
Yeah.
Because Paul's tired of this.
Yeah, Paul's tired.
Paul's so tired of it, he's referring to himself as Paul now.
Yeah. Go to patreon.com/whattoTech. You can fund us there. Also, if you're purchasing anything via Amazon, we have an Amazon page. It's gfq.co/Amazon. That's gfq.co/Amazon. Bookmark, and whenever you buy something, we get a tiny little credit, and it helps us out here at the studio, pay the bills. Paul, I want to talk to you about Google I/O because I missed all of Google I/O. Okay, and and I hate to do this, but it's so difficult, and you probably suffer from this too when you go away and you're not really connected. It's so hard to go back and kind of pick all the tiny things that may have made something a bigger story.
Yep.
What did we learn from Google I/O?
Oh my God, dude! What didn't we learn from Google I/O?
What didn't we learn?
It's funny watching the reactions to Google I/O over the past week or so. It's interesting to me how many people thought it wasn't that big of a show. You know, that there were no major announcements or whatever. Yeah. I think we're so used to these big bang hardware launches, right? Especially on the Apple side, but on the Microsoft side too, right? And on the Google side. Last fall, they launched the phones. They will launch the Pixel C tablet. They've had events in the past where they launched things like the new Chromebook Pixel or the Nexus 9 before that or whatever. And there was no big hardware. Well, that's not fair. There was one big hardware announcement, but there were no hardware announcements, the type we're used to: phones, tablets, laptops, that kind of thing. But honestly, I thought this was a great show, and I thought there was a lot of really neat stuff that came out of it.
So what were your top picks?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the big one obviously is this Google Home device, right? So this is one hardware device. It's basically Google's version of the Amazon Echo. And there was a lot of misunderstandings around what we call things now, because on a Google Android phone, you have Google on Tap, which is where you hold down the middle button on the bottom of the phone, and depending on what's on your screen or where you are, you'll see stuff that comes up that's kind of context sensitive. And then there's this thing called Google Now, where you swipe all the way over to the left, and it's that card-based interface that works off all the stuff that Google knows about you. Here are the things that are coming up. Here are the sports scores you care about. Here are the teams that you love that are playing tonight, that kind of stuff. So what Google has done is they basically said, look, the back-end infrastructure for all of this stuff is now called Google Assistant. And we're going to go down this conversation route like other companies have, like Amazon with Alexa, like Microsoft with Cortana, like Apple with Siri. And because we don't want people to always just have a device on them at all times to use this kind of thing, we're going to come out with this Echo-like device called Google Home. It looks like a giant woman's antiperspirant. And you can put these things around your house. You can talk to them, and you have conversations.
So competing with Amazon, obviously. But
obviously.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I really think for a product like this to be successful, the company that makes it has to have a search engine. And that means really there are only two companies that are ever going to be able to do this properly, long run. And those are Google
Vista, right?
Yeah. No. Yahoo. No.
Yeah.
Google and Microsoft.
Yeah.
Now, I think we know Microsoft and consumer products and services well enough to know that they're never going to get this right. So who cares? But I think this Google Home thing is a big, big deal. And I think this is going to be huge. I don't understand what took them so long, but I can't remember who I said this to. I was out with friends the other night, and I made this comparison. These guys are real Apple guys. And I said, it's not as serious as this, but think about it this way. When the iPhone came out, it changed everything. And if you were a company who was competing in the smartphone market, you had to stop everything you were doing, change it, and try to out-Apple Apple. And that's hard. And no one did it well. Android is an obvious example. Android was going to come out with this phone that had a hardware keyboard. They saw the iPhone, and Andy Rubin said, stop. We need to make something like the iPhone. We have to start over from scratch. BlackBerry didn't respond quickly enough. They came out with a half-assed touch product like the Storm.
The Storm, yeah.
They slowly, because I think BlackBerry and RIM is BlackBerry. Sorry,
they had
BlackBerry
they had the 10-year plan.
Yeah, but BlackBerry, Nokia, and Microsoft all had these successful mobile businesses, and they saw the iPhone and they were like, it's okay, we can compete with this, and they moved too slowly to kind of emulate.
And Palm moved as fast as they could, and they just they
ran out of money.
They ran out of money.
Yep, they did the best job. Actually, it's just that they didn't have the resources. So the Echo was like that, right? The market isn't as big today as the market for smartphones was in 2007. It's, and honestly, like you and I have talked a lot on this podcast about what I think of as kind of pervasive computing. Google called it ambient computing, which is, by the way, an even better word.
Yeah, it is. It is a better word. Yeah.
It's just in the air. The idea being that it doesn't matter where you are, you talk.
Is the idea that I have one of these in my living room and I'm having a conversation with my wife and we're watching TV and this actor comes up and I'm like, hey, what was that guy in? And I say, okay, Google, the guy in the Blacklist. What was that other movie he was in where?
By the way, yes. The answer is yes. But if this thing is truly smart, you're watching it on an Android TV, and you don't even have to say this guy on the Blacklist. You say this guy, and because he's on the screen, it comes up with the right answer. This is super smart. But again, I think, look, Google was working towards this. Siri has been around for a while. Google now is
Google
super
has been
effective.
it's great. I use it every single day, and I'm one of these people for the longest time. I said I never want to talk to a computer. I never want to talk to my computer. But you know what? I want to talk to my phone.
Nobody wants to touch the screen on their computers either. But you know what? When you add this functionality, suddenly it opens up.
Suddenly it opens up. So
I'm sorry, just to complete the thought on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't want to not say it.
Yeah.
I think that the Google Home is a reaction to the Google Echo. I'm sorry, the Amazon Echo, and I just think it was a disruptor that no one saw coming. That Google was going down some path where they would have arrived at this stuff eventually. They might have done it from a more of a smartphone orientation because that's their world, but Amazon forced them to shift. And I think that's what the important thing is here, because I think Google might have just stuck with the phone. I think they like, everyone has a phone. Think about, it's the hammer nail thing, right? Yeah. When Google comes out with a streamer called Chromecast, they don't give you a remote because everyone has a phone.
Yeah.
Even though having a remote would be super handy. It would be so nice to have a remote for that thing.
Okay.
But they don't think like that. So this shows a shift in their thinking.
So
this is them responding.
I'm going to ask I'm going to ask you about a couple examples here, okay, with Google Home. Okay, Amazon's point of the Echo is for you to use Amazon services and purchase Amazon products. It is a very nicely done way for you to get in the Amazon environment and purchase products from Amazon. Their end goal with this thing is you need to buy more Tide. So you say, Alexa, order me Tide, and it goes, okay, done. That's the end goal.
In other words, some of the other stuff you ask it is just convenience. It makes you like it, and it helps you overlook the fact that this thing is really just a revenue generating machine.
So give me a couple examples of how Google
Google makes money doing this.
Well, how Google will make money doing this because they don't really have a store, but
they don't have audio. They don't have audio ads.
They don't have audio. Can you imagine?
It's like Google, what's the, how far away is Pluto from the moon? Well, Paul, before I answer that question, here's a short ad about,
here's a 15-second ad. How do they make money doing this? I guess being in an environment, but number two, what is give me the end outcome of this, like the ultimate outcome of this Google Home device?
Well, right now, the Google Home device is vaporware. It doesn't exist. But so it's this little device. It's going to be like the Echo. You'll put one in your living room. Hopefully, you'll be a Google goon, and you'll put one in the kitchen, in your bedroom, and wherever else. In the future, if this thing is...
A double G, Google goon.
Yeah. Hopefully, in the future, if this thing is successful, this technology is successful, you're not really buying devices anymore. This stuff is just everywhere. So it becomes part of Android Auto. It's in your car.
Yeah.
It's just something that's everywhere. And it becomes that ambient, truly pervasive computing thing that you and I have been talking about for a long, long time. The way that Google makes money on this stuff is actually very similar to the way that Amazon does, right? It's not directly from search results or whatever, like, okay, Google, what's the capital of Montana or whatever. It's because a lot of the stuff you're going to be doing with this thing is going to be related to other things. Like you might say something like, "Hey, I'm in the mood for Italian tonight," and it will recommend restaurants in the area, and we'll get a Groupon style fee because you have booked a reservation using your voice.
Yeah.
You may, by the way, along the way, it will recommend a route to you using Google Maps, and it will go a slightly different way because there's traffic or an accident or whatever it is. And those things don't directly provide Google with revenues or profits or whatever, but they keep you in the ecosystem. And you're always thinking, your go-to thing is always Google. And that ultimately is how they make money, even if they don't make money literally every single time you ask it something.
Yeah. I would love there to be ads like commercials,
Sure.
like Friends is brought to you by Dove.
Yep.
And Toyota. I love what you do for me, Toyota.
Yep.
The new RAV4. It's
sure.
It's interesting that this is
so.
this may be, when we talk about home automation, this may be the missing thing in all of home automation, where you're not controlling your lights with, a phone. You're controlling it with this device. You're listening to your podcast on this device. You're turning your TV on. You're changing the channels. It's essentially taking away the remote, like you said.
It's the artificial intelligence that will be behind everything that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, and the smart handoff stuff is so neat. Like we're so excited these days to be able to respond to a text message from a computer. I mean, that's like nothing, right? I mean, or even the ability to, look up a route on maps on your PC because it's the big screen and that's kind of cool. And then you get in your car and the map pops up on your phone because it knows you were doing that already. These things can be extended into far more. Those are still useful, but into other useful areas where the ambient part of this, the pervasive part of it, is the handoff. It's cute to look at traffic from my computer, but the reality is I'm going to be out in the world and those conditions are going to change in real time, and you want that thing to respond and just to be there.
Yeah, Google could do this. What is Amazon using for their search? Are they using
like on the back end? That's a good question.
I bet you it's not Google.
Yeah, I bet it's not Google too. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Bing. And I think the way they would look at it, and look, we have to give Amazon a little credit. I think the surprising thing about the Echo is that it's popular at all. I mean, I don't think anyone thought Amazon would ever do something like this and then have it be successful. But the thing that they did right,
though? You think it is successful?
Yeah, they've sold millions of them.
Wow.
They're hard. They're not in stock. Like you have to wait to get one.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing that they did right though was they made it an open system and they've added on to its capabilities. They have a word for this. I'm forgetting the exact word, but let's just say capability. Like in other words, Uber integrates with the Echo and that becomes yet another capability. So when this thing shipped, it probably had 17 or 18 capabilities. It was like thousands. And, we tried one here and my wife found it to be fairly useless for us. We don't commute. We have our own way of doing things or whatever. We already have ways to bring up music and stuff like that. But, I think by not being beholden to any one data source, whereas, and Google, of course, would be reliant on their own stuff for the most part. And, third-party services too, of course.
Yeah.
Booking restaurants and whatnot, but they would probably want as much of that stuff to be theirs as possible. Amazon's done what they can do, and it's been very successful. I give them a lot of credit for that. It's surprising.
The only thing that I fear with Google, and it's kind of like the Amazon thing, is that there is very little fate in these products. Google will put something out, build an API, and build it for 6-7 years, and be like, oh, you know what? See you later.
Okay, but this thing is core to Google.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of
it's
search.
It's not Google Reader. It's not, it's not some little whatever. I'm not sure what else to call it, but this is core to what they do. The future of our interaction with this kind of backend services is conversational. And you can see the basics of it. Like Siri is not very conversational. You ask it a question, it answers. Cortana is a little bit conversational. You ask it a question, you ask it to do something, it will sometimes prompt you to say, okay, you said you wanted me to send a text message about this to this person. Is this correct?
Yeah.
And then you can say no, and then it will say, okay. And then there's a little bit, there's sort of the start
A little
of
bit
a
of a back and
conversation.
forth. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Google is one of the few companies, again, Microsoft would be the other one, that has the deep computer learnings, the machine learning, the AI capabilities, the back-end cloud services to make all that stuff work.
Yeah.
I don't think Apple does. I think Apple will always be a company that makes awesome hardware. Amazon absolutely doesn't. They have to partner with third parties from the get-go, right? It can't be all Amazon.
It is interesting, though, Amazon's approach now, because they do not sell Apple TVs and they do not sell Chromecasts anymore.
Right.
You cannot buy it. So they are kind of changing their mentality when it comes to this and saying, no, we're going to close the door. Why would we do this?
Yep.
I thought that was interesting because I wanted to go buy. I wanted to buy the new Apple TV, and I went on Amazon, and it's like, hey, do you mean a Fire TV?
You want a Fire TV?
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah,
sure.
That's actually amazing.
This is why we don't like monoculture, but yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so by the way, Google Assistant, Google Home, that's just one thing, right? That wasn't Google I/O. They announced that and then moved on.
Yeah.
So there's like other stuff, right? We learned a lot more about the next version of Android N. So there's a lot more information there. Associated releases for virtual reality, a special version of Android for virtual reality headsets is coming.
Interesting.
A major new release of Android Wear, a new version of Android TV, which doesn't get talked about a lot. And then there were some, this is kind of interesting because Microsoft is just starting to go in a completely different direction. But new messaging and video apps, let's call them video call apps for Android and iOS, right? And it's funny because my knee-jerk reaction to the messaging app in particular was the same as everyone else's, which is, yeah, it's just what we need. Another messaging app.
Yeah, don't you already have a messaging app?
What's the point, right?
Yeah.
And I do sort of agree that, these capabilities should just be built into the messaging app that is an Android, right? If this thing is so good, it should just be messaging in Android. But
so
there's two things to that.
It's called Google Messenger, correct?
No, the new one's called Google Allo.
Allo.
Like ALLO.
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 Okay.
And then there's a associated video chat
Duo.
app called Duo.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. So just two things, and in some ways, this is my perception of inside baseball. Like this, how I think the mobile industry works. I actually think it's easier for them to release a separate app because they could just put it in the store like any other app. It allows them to get the identical app on iOS, so they can get as much push as possible. And then over time, I do actually expect this to become the messaging app in Android, but they can't do it from the get-go because it just wouldn't have the uptick.
Here's the problem with this. Okay, there's Google Messenger. There's Google Hangouts, right? Which do the same thing. And then you have, like Samsung has their own messenger, and then your service provider, being AT&T or Verizon, has their own messenger.
Yep. I know.
You know why I'm sorry, but you know why Apple people want iPhones? Because all you have is freaking iMessage, and that's it.
Okay, but it's not that simple because even on the iPhone, you have Snapchat and WhatsApp and blah blah blah. There's still all these other.
You still choose that though. You know what I mean? Like that's still not.
I know. I'm just Look, whatever. So this is the initial reaction is like what you're saying. Like right. Like wait. But here's the thing. The reason I think Allo is actually really interesting is because it's based on that Google Assistant technology, right? This is an example. I think we're going to see the Google Assistant stuff pop up in different places. And messaging is an obvious place because one of the big things that's happening in the messaging world today, whether you're talking about Facebook or Snapchat or WhatsApp or whatever, Skype even, people are, this is seen as kind of the platform. This is where people's eyeballs are. So let's extend this thing with all these new capabilities. You saw the goofy thing where you can order like a Domino's pizza from Skype, that was demonstrated at Build a month ago. So they put the Google Assistant behind this thing, but they do it in a way that actually makes more sense than the way Microsoft's doing it with Skype. So for example, if I wanted to order a pizza from Domino's with Skype, I would have to install a Skype bot.
Domino's bot
in Skype. And then I would have to start a conversation with that bot as if it were one of my friends and say, hey, bot, I would like to buy a pizza. And then it could be smart or not from there. It could say, hey, Paul, you typically buy this order. Is this what you want? And I could say, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want that to go against your normal payment method? Yes. And we're done. And, neat. But Google, being creepy and weird and being Google, is doing it in a completely different way. Yeah. And even though some people will take exception to this,
like smart replies for photos, like I'm watching a video right now. Someone posted a picture of a butterfly, and it says smart replies. It said, beautiful butterfly, nice job, pretty.
Well, that's okay. So that's funny because it's almost a slightly different thing. Although that is another example of how it's intelligent.
Yeah.
I was thinking more along the lines of something like I'm chatting with you when we're on Google Hello for some reason, and I say, God, Andrew, I'd really like to get some pizza tonight. Then the bot comes up. Like I didn't ask the bot, and it comes up on its own.
And it gives you recommendations for pizza.
Yep. Yeah. And it says, look, I know where you are, Andrew, and I know where you are, Paul. Here are the places that are in a certain size radius. This is the one that's most highly rated. I think you guys should meet there and have pizza. And I can make reservations for you right now. Right?
I mean, another great way to make money.
In a way,
yeah,
right? It doesn't exist yet. But this is where they're going with it. I think this is why it's a separate app. I think it's kind of out on the leading edge. Yeah, it's, it's something they need to play with.
So that's a great example of what's going to happen when those are paid search ads. Like, I'm a pizzeria, and I'm paying Google for a Google AdSense, and
by the way,
it'll be the first recommended. It'll be like, hey, listen, check this out, and it'll be like an AdSense thing. That's fascinating.
That will happen.
Yeah,
that's going to be part of it. But again, so there might be a good pizzeria in your area, like let's say we're over by where you live, and they're not in this system for some reason, and they're not going to get recommended, maybe, or they're recommended on a slightly less, desirable place because of that. I mean, of course, it happens, but that's what happens when you search the web too, right?
Yeah, it's a new way of we have to rethink how we look at this. It's very interesting, very, very interesting.
Yeah. So that was the big stuff, I think. The Duo thing, I don't think there's really much to say there.
Nothing with Chromebooks. Nothing with.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. I'm sorry. Sorry. That was day one.
Nothing with Chrome.
Then on day two, actually, you're right. I apologize. There was a different thing that happened on day two. So, there was more. As expected, this was widely rumored. Google revealed that they will, in fact, be bringing Android apps and the Google Play Store to Chrome OS. A couple of weeks ago, I wrote an editorial, but I think we discussed it about this notion that, could Apple and Google, maybe I should say Apple and or Google, could they just disrupt the PC market right now with these two-in-one PC type devices, iPad Pro in Apple's case, or the Pixel C or Chromebook or whatever. Yeah. Could this happen, right? Because it's happening to some degree, but if they just matured these OSs enough, wouldn't this put it over the top? This thing is such a decisive step into this future. It's amazing because what it does is effectively remove the biggest problems with Android and with Chrome OS, right? In one step. By allowing you to have the Google Play Store with Android apps on Chrome OS, you've gotten rid of the problem where Chrome OS has no good apps, which it doesn't, basically. Yeah. That store is terrible.
Yeah.
There's not that web apps can't be great apps. There are some great apps in there, but overall, it's a tiny store with a very low number of high quality apps. This solves that problem nicely. It brings Microsoft's Office apps to Chromebook.
To Chrome OS. Yeah.
Right? With offline capabilities.
So essentially,
it solves a lot of problems. Yeah,
it's a PC. I mean.
Yeah. So in other words, think about it this way. Here's the PC industry today. We have, 1.5 billion people out there. 50% of them are running Windows 7. Microsoft has tried, by the way, since 2003 to get the world to move on to these new platforms that would run on the PC, whether it was like the Avalon, whatever they were calling it, stuff in the days of Longhorn, to the modern apps of Windows 8, to the universal apps of today. And I'll tell you, developers and users have ignored this stuff in droves. What was the last major PC app that was developed? It was probably Chrome, by the way, or,
the last major PC app that was developed.
Like classic Windows desktop.
Like a big desktop. Deal, like a big.
Yes. The biggest apps on Windows are decades old.
No, it is Chrome.
iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Chrome is another platform, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's like iTunes, Chrome, Photoshop, Office, obviously, but that's a Microsoft thing, and it's decades old. Microsoft's trying to change that. They're trying to bring mobile app stuff into the OS. They're trying to get people excited about these universal apps. Google just did it.
Very interesting.
What would be better? Like, in other words, Microsoft's pushing this universal Windows app thing, right? And you're like, okay, that's interesting. What if you could just run Android apps on Windows natively? What if they just worked?
Yeah,
Android apps, right? That's there's your mobile app platform right there.
Well, I think it's more. I don't think they're going to do it, but I think it's way more of a reality for Microsoft to attempt something like that. For obviously for Chrome OS, it's going to work. I can't see. I don't know how Apple would do this. I think they would be a little bit more dismissive of the idea of allowing you to run iOS apps within the Mac OS.
So I think Apple has the same problem that Microsoft does.
They may be forced into it.
Right.
But
but this is beautiful because for Google, right? It really is, and this is something it's gonna be a hard pill for like Windows fans to swallow. But the fact remains that when you look at personal computing devices, we've moved into an era of mobility, mobile devices, mobile platforms, iOS and Android. That's the majority for most people. The majority of time that they spend today, the majority of time they will ever need to spend in front of a computing device will be spent in these mobile platforms. But every once in a while, you need to write a long paper. You need to make a complicated presentation. You have esoteric needs. You're an accountant that uses Excel. You're a graphic artist that uses Photoshop. You're an architect that uses whatever specialty software that those people use. And in those cases, you need the power of a PC. Yeah. Well, they've just hit the sweet spot because this thing solves the problem for the majority, and it solves the problem for those people who are students or normal people who very occasionally need to print something or need to add a graphic to a word processing document that's a little ponderous to do in the mobile version of Docs or whatever. Like this really, it solves the problem for most people.
It changes a lot of things. Yeah. It's very interesting.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Listen, it's I don't know how much it'll hurt the PC market, but it definitely will.
So the only thing that Windows and Microsoft has going for it at this point is with regards to this thing is Chrome OS devices are spectacularly unsuccessful.
Yeah.
They're only successful in the United States, and in the United States, they're only successful in education.
And in lower end devices. It's successful.
And they tend to be lower end devices. Yeah. Although, by the way, one of the big trends this year is that the three of the top PC makers, Dell, HP, and Acer, have all announced business class Chromebooks, right? So they're going after that market. But anyway, that they're trying. We'll see what happens. But this is something. If you go to Europe, if you go to South America, you go to Asia, you ask someone about Chromebooks, they have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
These things don't exist. And even in the United States, I mean, when I fly or take a train or whatever,
I get to see one.
Chromebooks out in the world. I have, in all of my travels, literally seen one Chromebook in the wild.
I have seen more Windows phones in the wild than I have Chromebooks.
Yeah, no, me too. Yeah. By far. Yeah, by far.
Interesting. All right, Paul. Time to wrap it up. Guys, if you're watching live, stay tuned. We're going to do What to Talk right after this. If you're listening to the podcast, go to patreon.com/whattotech. Fund us there, and you can get access to all the great shows that we do over there. Everything Paul Thurrott, go to thurrott.com. Paul, you're in New York on Thursday, so I'm going to see you on Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be
fun.
fun.
Who's not going to be there?
Who's not going to be there?
Mary Jo.
Where? Where is she? Why?
She's visiting family.
Is it just me and you?
Yep.
That's it? Nobody else?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Aw, it'll be nice and cute. Nice little romantic evening. Nice afternoon we'll have together.
Yes.
Go to thurrott.com. Paul also does a phenomenal podcast called Windows Weekly on the Twit Network. You can watch it every Wednesday at 2 p.m. East. You can follow me on Twitter at AndrewStan. You can follow Paul at Thurrott. And we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye for now.